Hello students, welcome to ReadMed Prep Academy channel. Today in Principles of Ecology Part 1, we shall discuss about the introduction to ecology, introduction to the ecological factors. In the ecological factors, let us talk about the climatic factors. Ecology is a division of biology which deals with the study of environment in relation to the organisms. It can be studied by considering individual organisms, population, community, biome or biosphere and their environment. Plants or animals vary with different places. What are the causes for variation in biological diversity of different places? How soil, climate and other physical features affect the flora and fauna or vice versa? These questions can be better answered when we study the ecology. Ecology is essentially a practical science involving experiments, continuous observations to predict how organisms react to particular environmental circumstances and understanding the principles involved in ecology. The term ecology, ecology, is derived from two Greek words, oikos meaning house or dwelling place and logos meaning study. It was first proposed by Rita in 1868. However, the most widely accepted definition of ecology was given by Ernest Haeckel in 1869. Alexander von Humboldt is considered as the father of ecology. Eugene P. Odum is considered as the father of modern ecology. R. Mishra was a pioneer in the work of Indian ecology. Now let us move on to the definitions of ecology. The study of living organisms, both plants and animals in their natural habitats or homes. This was given by Rita in 1885. Ernest Haeckel in 1889 defined that ecology is the study of the reciprocal relationship between the living organisms and their environment. Interaction of organisms with the environment results in the establishment of grouping of organisms, which is called ecological hierarchy or ecological levels of organization. The basic unit of ecological hierarchy is an individual organism. Here you can see the different hierarchy of ecological systems which is illustrated. The basic unit is the individual organism, then the individual organism joined together to form the population, population joined to form the community, community joined to form the ecosystem, all the ecosystem joined to form the landscape forms the biome, and the biome all joins together to form the biosphere. What are the branches of ecology? They are divided into two, haute ecology and syn ecology. Haute ecology is the ecology of an individual species and is also called species ecology. Syn ecology is the ecology of a population or community with one or more species and is also called as community ecology. Many advances and developments in the field of ecology resulted in various new dimensions and branches. Some of the advanced fields are molecular ecology, ecotechnology, statistical ecology, and environmental toxicology. What is a habitat? Habitat is a specific physical place or locality occupied by an organism or any species which has a particular combination of abiotic or environmental factors. But the environment of any community is called biotope. Here you can see the different habitats like the desert, domestic, farm, forest, polar regions, UK wild, wetlands, tropical rainforest, savanna and the oceans. What is a niche? An ecological niche refers to an organism's place in the biotic environment and its functional role in an ecosystem. The term was coined by the naturalist Roswell Hill Johnson, but Grinnell in 1917 was probably the first to use the term niche. The habitat and niche of any organism is called ecotope. Here you can see a tree which is a fundamental niche, and different parts of the tree is the niche for different birds. For example, the blue birds inhabited the trunk and the lower branches, the red birds inhabit the middle boughs of tree, and the yellow birds inhabited the upper tree regions. What are the differences between a habitat and a niche? Habitat is a specific physical space occupied by an organism or a species. Niche is a fundamental space occupied by an organism in the same ecosystem. Same habitat may be shared by many organisms or species, whereas a single niche is occupied by a single species. Habitat specificity is exhibited by organisms. Organisms may change their niche with time and season. Now, what is this applied ecology or environmental technology? Application of the science of ecology is otherwise called as applied ecology or environmental technology. It helps us to manage and conserve the natural resources, particularly the ecosystems, forest and wildlife conservative and management. Environmental management involves biodiversity conservation, ecosystem restoration, habitat management, invasive species management, protected areas management, and also help us plan landscapes and environmental impact designing for the futuristic ecology. Ecological equivalence. Taxonomically, different species occupying similar habitats or niches in different geographical regions are called ecological equivalence. Example, certain species of epiphytic orchids of Western Ghats of India differ from the epiphytic orchids of South America, but both are epiphytes. Here you can see the epiphytic orchids of Western Ghats on the left side and the epiphytic orchids of South America on the right side. Example 2. Species of the grasslands of Western Ghats of India differ from the grass species of the temperate grasslands of steppe in North America, but they are all ecologically primary producers, fulfilling the similar roles in the respective communities. Here you can see on the left side the grasslands of Western Ghats. On the right side you can see the temperate grasslands of steppe in North America. Now let us move on to the introduction to ecological factors. Many organisms coexist in an environment. The environment surrounding includes physical, chemical and biological components. When a component surrounding an organism affects the life of an organism, it becomes a factor. All such factors together are called environmental factors or ecological factors. What is the classification of environmental factors? They are living or biotic and non-living or abiotic, which makes the environment of an organism. The environmental factors you can see, all the blue are abiotic factors. For example, like air, carbon dioxide, oxygen, sunlight, water, they are all abiotic factors. All that is in the red are biotic factors, for example, which have life, insects, plants, microorganisms, mammals, reptiles, birds, etc. Now, what is the classification of ecological factors? The ecological factors are meaningfully grouped into 4 classes: climatic factors, edaphic factors, topographic factors and biotic factors. Here in this image you can see the climatic factors, where sun is the main source of light and the clouds which precipitate give the rain, and the wind is a climatic factor. Carbon dioxide and water vapor in the air form the biosphere, help the plants. What are the biotic factors? The birds, insects, man, grazing animals, rodents, plant pathogens and epiphytes. What are the edaphic factors? Soil slope, landscape, soil water, physical nature of the soil, the mineral contents of the soil and the availability of soil air are all edaphic factors. Now let us start with the climatic factors. Climate is one of the important natural factors controlling the plant life. They include light, temperature, water, wind and fire. Let us talk one by one. Light is a well-known factor needed for the basic physiological processes of plants such as photosynthesis, transpiration, seed germination and flowering. The portion of the sunlight which can be resolved by the human eye is called the visible light. The visible part of the light is made up of wavelength from 400 nanometers, which is violet, to 700 nanometers, which is red. The rate of photosynthesis is maximum at the blue, between 400 to 500 nanometers, and red 600 to 700 nanometers. The green, which is around 500 to 600 nanometers, wavelength of spectrum is less strongly absorbed by the plants. Here you can see the light spectrum, where between 300 to 400 is the ultraviolet light, and the visible spectrum ranges from the 400 to 700 nanometers, and beyond 700 to 800 or above is the infrared light. What are the effects of light on the plants? Light regulates photosynthesis, opening and closing of the stomata, movements of the plant, germination of seeds, flowering of the plants, tuber formation, runner production, stem and leaf formation. Based on the tolerance to intensities of light, the plants are divided into two types: heliophytes and cyophytes. Heliophytes are light-loving plants, example angiosperms. Cyophytes are shade-loving plants, example bryophytes and pteridophytes. Heliophytes have a high rate of photosynthesis as well as respiration. The leaves are thinner and more widely spaced. Vertical orientation of leaf blades are there. Thicker stem, well-developed conducting elements and mechanical elements. Longer roots, shorter internodes, more branching, lower chlorophyll content, higher respiration rate, higher osmotic pressure. Examples: sugarcane, sunflower and maize. What are cyophytes? They have lower rate of photosynthesis and a lower rate of respiration. Shade leaves are thinner, weakly lobed, have large surface area per unit weight, fewer stomata and less support and conduction tissues, have low growth rates. Cuticle generally is thin. Epidermis is thin and single layered. The examples are mint, currant and sorrel. In deep sea, where it is more than 500 meters below the ocean surface, the environment is dark and its inhabitants are not aware of the existence of celestial source of energy called the sun. So what then is the source of energy? They utilize chemical substances for the synthesis of their food, like chemosynthesis. And there are certain animals which also emit light below deep in the sea. What is paleoclimatology? Helps to reconstruct past climates of our planet and flora, fauna and the ecosystem in which they lived. Example: air bubbles trapped in ice for tens of thousands of years with fossilized pollen, coral, plant and animal debris. Now let us move on to the temperature. Temperature is one of the important factors which affect almost all the metabolic activities of an organism. Every physiological process in an organism requires an optimum temperature at which it shows the maximum metabolic rate. Three limits of temperature can be recognized for any organism. They are minimum temperature, where the physiological activities are the lowest; optimum temperature, where the physiological activities of the organism are maximum; and the maximum temperature, where the physiological activities will stop. Based on the temperature prevailing in the area, Roncaer classified the world's vegetation into the following four types: megatherms, mesotherms, microtherms and hecistotherms. Thermal springs and in deep sea hydrothermal vents, where the average temperature may exceed more than 100 degrees centigrade. Based on the range of thermal tolerance, organisms are classified into two types: eurythermal, where the organisms can tolerate a wide range of temperature fluctuations. Example: Zostera, a marine angiosperm, and Artemisia tridentata. Stenothermal, organisms which can tolerate only small range of temperature variations. Example: mango and palm. These are all terrestrial angiosperms. Mango plant do not and cannot grow in temperate countries like Canada and Germany. What is thermal stratification? It is usually found in aquatic habitat. The change in the temperature profile with increasing depth in a water body is called thermal stratification. There are three kinds of thermal stratifications: epilimnion, the upper layer of the water which is warmer and the temperature is higher; metalimnion, the middle layer with a zone of gradual decrease in the temperature than the surface; and hypolimnion, the bottom layer which is colder than the middle and the upper surface. Here you can see a water body having the upper surface called the epilimnion, the middle layer called the metalimnion, and the lowest layer which has lesser temperature called the hypolimnion. Variations in the latitude and altitude do affect the temperature and the vegetation on the Earth's surface. The latitudinal and the altitudinal zonation of vegetation is illustrated in the next slides. Here you can see the latitude, which is an angle which ranges from 0 degrees at the equator to 90 degrees at the poles. When you take the latitudinal zonation of vegetation type on the right side in the image, you can see the tropical rainforest which occur between 0 to around 30. Then the grass or desert lands. Then the deciduous forest. Then the coniferous forests and the tundra, which shows the tree line. Nearing 90 degrees angle, it is ice and snow where the vegetation is very minimal or no vegetation. Now altitude. How high a place is located above the sea level is called the altitude of the place. You can see based on the altitudinal, the zonation of vegetation varies. For example, between 0 to 1800 feet, it is about the tropical rainforest. Between 1800 to 4000, it shows grassland or desert. 4000 to 7500, the deciduous forest exists. Between 7500 feet to 12500 altitude, we can see the coniferous forest. Between 12,000 feet to 14,500, it's a tundra forest. Above 14,500, usually it is a snow and the trees do not much exist or the vegetation does not occur. What is timberline or tree line? It is an imaginary line in a mountain or higher areas of the land that marks the level above which the trees do not grow. The altitudinal limit of the normal tree growth is about 3000 to 4000 meters. On the right side, you can see the vegetation occurring just from below, and the topmost regions of the mountain do not show vegetations. What are the effects of temperature? Temperature affects the enzymatic action of all the biochemical reactions in a plant body. It influences carbon dioxide and oxygen solubility in the biological systems. It increases respiration, stimulates growth of the seedlings. Low temperature with high humidity can spread diseases to plants. The varying temperature with moisture determines the distribution of vegetation types. What are the effects of high temperature? It can cause improper nutrient absorption, improper germination, decrease in the photosynthetic efficiency, modulation of relative water content, protoplasmic movement is affected, the transport of materials from the roots to the upper part of the plants may also be affected, there is loss of membrane stability, modulation of hormones, primary and secondary metabolites are affected, the seed quality and improper seed filling occurs, there is oxidative stress, there is damage to the biological macromolecules of the plant. Now let us move on to water. Water is one of the most important climatic factors. It affects the vital processes of all the living organisms. It is believed that even life had originated only in water during the evolution of Earth. Water covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface. In nature, water is available to plants in three ways. They are atmospheric moisture, precipitation of the clouds resulting in the rain, and the soil water. Evergreen forests are found where there is heavy rainfall occurs throughout the year. You can see the image on the right side. Sclerophyllous forests are found where heavy rainfall occurs during winter and low rainfall occurs during summer. You can see the image on the right side. The productivity and distribution of plants depend upon the availability of water. Further, the quality of water is also very important, especially for the aquatic organisms. The total amount of water salinity in different water bodies are shown here. 5% in inland water, that is fresh water. 30 to 35% is occupied by seawater. And more than 100% of water is a hypersaline water. The total amount of water salinity is shown here. In fresh water, the salinity is only around 5%. In seawater, the salinity is between 30 to 35%, and in hypersaline water like lagoons where the salinity is 100%. Here you can see the freshwater bodies like river, lake, ponds, streams, etc. Oceans where the water is saline. Here you can see a lagoon where the salinity is around 100% and is directly connected to the oceans. Based on the range of tolerance of salinity, organisms are divided into two types, euryhaline and stenohaline. Euryhaline, where organisms can live in water with wide range of salinity. Examples, marine algae and marine angiosperms. Stenohaline, organisms which can withstand only small range of salinity. Example, plants of estuaries. Here a terminology is shown. Steno all indicates narrow range. Eury always indicates larger range. So stenothermal, eurythermal for temperature, stenohaline, euryhaline for salinity, stenoceous and euryceous for habitat selection like niche, stenohydric and euryhydric for water, stenophagic or euryphagic for the consumption of food, stenobasic and eurybasic based on the depth of water and the habitat. Examples of tolerance to toxicity. Soybean and tomato manage to tolerate presence of cadmium poisoning by isolating cadmium and storing into few group of cells and prevent cadmium affecting other cells. Rice and Ecornia, which is a water hyacinth, they tolerate cadmium by binding it to their proteins. These plants otherwise can also be used to remove cadmium from contaminated soil. This is called phytoremediation. Wind. Air in motion is called wind. It is also a vital ecological factor. The atmospheric air contains a number of gases, particles and other constituents. This is an anemometer, which is an instrument used to measure the speed of wind. Composition of gases in the atmosphere: nitrogen is 78%, oxygen is 21%, carbon dioxide is 0.03%, argon and other gases are 0.93%. The other components of wind are water vapor, gaseous pollutants, smoke particles, microorganisms, pollen grains, spores, etc. Here you can see in this image the occupation of various gases: nitrogen 78%, oxygen 20%, carbon dioxide and other gases 0.03%, inert gases mainly argon 0.97% and water vapor and other materials 1%. Now what is the greenhouse effect? Solar radiation passes through the clear atmosphere. Most of the radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface and warms it. Some solar radiation is reflected by the Earth and the atmosphere. Some of the infrared radiation passes through the atmosphere and some is absorbed and re-emitted in all the molecules. The effect of this is to warm the Earth's surface and lower the atmosphere. Infrared radiation is emitted from the Earth's surface. So gases let out to the atmosphere causes climatic change. Emission of dust and aerosols, which are small solids or liquid particles in suspension in the atmosphere from industries, automobiles, forest fires, sulfur dioxide and dimethyl sulfur called DMS play an important role in disturbing the temperature level of any region. Aerosols with small particles in the atmosphere is reflecting the solar radiation entering the atmosphere. This is known as albedo effect. So it reduces the temperature or the cooling limits photosynthesis and respiration. The sulfur compounds are responsible for acid rain due to acidification of rainwater and destroy the ozone. What are the effects of wind? Wind is an important factor for the formation of rain. Causes wave formation in the lakes and oceans, which promotes aeration of water. Strong wind causes soil erosion and reduces the soil fertility. It also increases the rate of transpiration, helps in pollination in anemophilous plants. It helps in dispersal of many fruits, seeds and spores, etc. Strong wind may also cause uprooting of the big trees. Here in this image you can see pollination occurring by wind. In the center image you can see the dispersal of fruits and seeds which are adapted to be spread by the wind, having small feather-like or hair-like structures, and the seeds are lightweight. On the right side you can see the uprooting of the trees. Unidirectional wind blowing will stimulate the development of flag forms in trees, where you can see the image on the right side. Now let us move on to fire. Fire is an exothermic factor caused due to the chemical process of combustion releasing heat and light. It is mostly man-made and sometimes develops naturally due to the friction between the tree surfaces. Fire is divided into ground fire, which is flameless and subterranean; surface fire, which consumes the small herbs and shrubs; ground fire, which burns the canopy of the tall trees in the forest. In these images you can see the ground fire on the right image, the surface fire on the lower image, and the crown fire on the lower image. What are the effects of fire? Fire has a direct lethal effect on plants. Burning scars are the suitable places for the entry of parasitic fungi and insects. It brings about the alteration of light, rainfall, nutrient cycle, fertility of the soil, pH, soil flora and fauna. Some fungi which grow in the soil of burnt areas called pyrophilus. Example, Pyronema confluens. Pteris, a fern, is an indicator of fire, and Pyronema, which is a fungus, indicates the burnt up and fire disturbed areas. So they are called indicators of fire. On the image on the right side you can see the fungus Pyronema growing on the burnt surfaces. What is fire break? It is a gap made in the vegetation that acts as a barrier to slow down or stop the progress of fire. A natural fire break may occur when there is a lack of vegetation, such as rivers, lake and canyon found in between the vegetation may act as a natural fire break. You can see the image on the right side, the dried up stream or a river showing no vegetation, and the vegetation is present on either side, forming the fire break. What is Rhytidome? It is the structural defense by plants against fire. The outer bark of the trees, which extends to the last formed periderm, is called Rhytidome. It is composed of multiple layers of suberized periderm, cortical and phloem tissues. It protects the stem against fire, water loss, invasion of insects, and prevents infections by microorganisms. In this image you can see on the left side the thickened outermost bark portion showing the Rhytidome. On the right side you can see the image, the outer bark showing the Rhytidome, the inner bark inner to the Rhytidome, and the sapwood and the heartwood and the cambium zone. So today in Principles of Ecology Part 1 we discussed about the introduction to ecology, introduction to ecological factors and the climatic factors. Thank you. Kindly subscribe, like, share and comment our channel Read Med Prep Academy. Log on to www.readmedprepacademy.com for multiple choice questions. Our Facebook ID is Read Med Prep Academy. Our email is readmedprepacademy@gmail.com. Our Instagram is Read Med Prep Academy. Kindly post your questions in the comment box. We will reply with appropriate answers. Thank you very much.